Hey guys, welcome back to the studio. This week it's going to be Moni Blues, April's Blues. It's a brand new track on the Cambridge Vaults, and here's my mix breakdown.
Okay, welcome back. Different day, different sweater. I messed up yesterday's recording, so I'm starting over. No biggie though. Happy to show you the entire thing here. So let me start with some of the printed tracks. I just printed the original, recording. No panning, no effects, nothing. And then here's my final mix, this track. So I'll start by soloing this one. I'll play a little bit and then I'll switch them intermittently. You'll hear the difference and you'll hear what I did to it.
Taste, baby, one more kiss. I can get you out of my head. Can go on like this. Me mata tu silencio. Me matan tus palabras. How do we get to this? Ooh, ooh. How do we get to this?
Okay, so I think it's pretty clear, right? It's a pretty good recording, but it's very muddy. There's a lot going on in the mid-range and in the low range, not allowing the bass to breathe a lot. And I actually did a lot here, so let me just walk you through it. So let's just go top to bottom. With the arrangement, I start with the bass. So on the bass group, here we have a bass 1. As usual, I'll just turn it off and then turn it on again so you can hear the difference. Here we go. I'll solo this bass. So you hear, it's fuller, there's some distortion on this. So this thing is basically a compressor, it does distortion, it does some EQing. You can replicate this all with just Ableton plugins. I just love this, it's an all-in-one. I really just used this preset and I probably lowered it a little bit because I don't like it to be too thick, but the bass is just, it's a bit more explicit now. And that's all I did to it. You might wonder, what is this VCC thing? It's just a virtual console, so this emulates the old console tasks, and at the end of the video I'll let you hear the difference, because I think on this song it works out really nice. On the groups it is set to a Brit 4K, and then I think on the channels I actually did the same. Yeah, so it's just the default setting. I kept it there because I like the warmth of this. Yeah, so that's the bass group. Let me close this for you, and then on the bass itself I have a TDR Nova, which is just taking out all the highs, and a compressor which is side chaining to the kick, because I wanted the kick to come in more, and the bass is quite thick and it's quite prominent all the time, and I was having trouble getting the drums to really hit. So let me turn off this and then I'll let you hear what the bass was actually doing, because there's a lot of stuff, a lot of clicking and a lot of hand movement that I really didn't need throughout the whole song. Just cleans it up a little bit. I don't, sometimes you want that. I didn't want it here because there's a lot happening. There's so many guitars, broom in this song. I wanted to give those guitar space, and the bass just do what it does. On the drums group, I was having trouble with the basic drums, just bringing them out. So there's a kick, I duplicated that. There's a kick out. There's some snares here, snares up and snares down, different microphones. Hi-hat, 4 toms, and then actually 1 click, but I duplicated that and then I copied it over here, and then there's some claps. There's an overhead, and there's also a drum room, which is quite nice, but I didn't need it, so I just turned it off. On the drums there's some slight panning back and forth, to kind of make it a wider kit. Especially on the toms, I like it when they have this effect of going from left to right. But let me just start from the top. So with the kick, what did I do with the kick? I cut out the lows because I wanted to give the bass some more space. And sometimes if you cut the lows, it really kicks a little bit more, it pumps a little bit more. Let me solo this track, and then without the TDR Nova and with. minor difference, but a little bit more punch. And then here, I wanted this kick to really punch strongly. So I gave it some clipping, just enough. And then also it wasn't enough for me, so I dragged in this punch boom in A, which is a very nice plugin from Ableton, which just adds a lot of punch. It's not being driven a lot, just 27%, but I'll just turn it off and on. And then, so I'll turn off the clipper and then play this kick, and then I'll turn them on one by one. Okay, so it's not punch in the low frequency range, but it's punch in the high frequency range that we're looking for. That's why it's parallel, because we keep the low frequency range. This is quite boomy, and then this accentuates the kick a bit more in the high frequencies, or the higher, it's still mid. So there's that, and then the kick out did nothing to it. It's rather boring. I lowered it quite a lot. I lowered all of these actually quite a lot, because also I duplicated them. I just kept it in because it added something. Snare up, another snare up. So with this snare up, the first one, just lowered it 2 decibels, and then I duplicated it because I wasn't getting from the snare what I needed. This is the basic snare up track, and then this is the snare down track without, I'll turn off the plugins. So very different ranges that it's been recording, and this is more of the low mids, and then the up is really more the high range stuff. So I wanted it to punch much more. So what I did is I added a clipper on this just to get more out of it. Let me just turn this off and then play it and then turn it on again. Get a little bit more richness. And also on the snare down, what I did here, I just turned these off, but I'll play the snare down. I'll start turning these on. What I did with the EQ is nothing, just to see what was going on within the bandwidth. So I could just have left that on. Let me solo the track. Here we go. Now this is saturator in the band 2 and band 4 ranges. You see them, band 2 and band 4. This is just adding a little bit of, shimmer in the highs, I think. And then the snare here, the second one. So I duplicated the snare, and then what I did here is I just selected this band. Oh, I only selected this band because I didn't need the rest. I just wanted to accentuate that punch more, and I clipped it really hard. So I'll turn these off, then you'll just hear the regular snare, and I'll turn them on. That's the only range I wanted to target. Just clipping the hell out of it. So, it's parallel, so you still have the original one here, and then this is just adding more to it. So let me play you all these 4. There's more coming out of it now. The hi-hat did nothing to it, just lowered it a little bit. The toms on the group did a TDR Nova, and I kind of took out all the lows and even lowered it here, because I'll let you hear these toms without it. Let me find a section where they're actually playing. Here. It's quite boomy, And there's so much happening in the lows, and this boominess, I don't really need it. So with this, it's a bit more accentuated. I just have more of the frequencies that I need, like those higher frequencies. It's not a lot, but it's helping me, and in context of the entire mix, it's really making a difference. Let me just pull up the whole mix. Off and on.
I can get you out of my head.
On.
I can get you out of my head.
Yeah, small difference, but I only needed that, so why have the other stuff in there? Okay, then on to the clicks. So here In this part of the track, which is basically the intro or the first verse and the chorus, it's just a vocal and clicks. That's all that's happening. So what I did here is, I didn't create a send for this here, but I just put a Valhalla reverb on this because I just wanted it to sound really roomy. The reverb is set to ambience mode, did nothing else to it, and then the TDR Nova taking out all the lows of the clicks, let you hear them without, and then turn it on.
I'm trying to get your.
Let me solo them. Simple as that. Then I just duplicated them, I penned them, hard left, hard right, and that's about it really. Yeah, just did the same thing on both tracks. And then here I did the same. I just copied this over. I could have, what I did here effectively is just lower the volume a lot, because here in the track they were super loud, and they still are quite loud. Let you hear it in the context of the whole track. They are definitely there, and on these levels they were really definitely there. So I just copied these over to new tracks. I could have automated this, but then you have to pull up the automation, and I have unlimited tracks anyway, so why not just create some new tracks so I can always see what's going on and not be like, hey, why are these clicks so soft? Oh wait, the automation is there. It's really nice. Then the claps, I just duplicated these and penned them quite strongly. On the second one there's a delay. It's just a 7 millisecond delay, but what's happening on this is, if you don't do that, then you can pan all you want, but you actually don't get the width that you want, because your brain will still put them together if they sound at exactly the same moment. They'll put them centered. So there we go. Actually, I should have also done this on the clicks, so why not just be very lazy and copy this over, even though you won't hear this because I didn't render this delay, but yeah, little mishap there. Then the overheads, this is really interesting. So so far I've had this. Let me just solo all this. Okay, it's hitting pretty hard. I like it. I just wanted these punchy drums, but it wasn't enough for me. So then I took the overhead, and if you listen to this without this clipper on it, this is what's going on. It is exactly what I needed for the accents that I wanted to hit harder. So I just clipped that a lot. Let me just play it without and with. Bring it all out a little bit more, and that just brings it all together, and it makes it hit a bit more. The drums room, let me just solo it for a moment. There's so much going on. I already have all those highs. Didn't need more of it, so I just decided to mute it. You don't need to use all the tracks that you get. Then here I created this FX for these little things that, the telephone is here. I'll solo that.
The number you have dialed.
It's just these two samples that kind of, accentuate the track. And what's happening throughout the track is, in the full track I wasn't hearing them.
The number.
Now I am. And what I did, for example, not on the bass, no, that wouldn't make any sense. For example, I think on the piano, no, on these, no. Definitely on one of these guitars, yeah. Here, I have a compressor with a very low attack release, which is basically, and a super high ratio, which is basically, it just became a sidechain compressor. It is ducking this guitar whenever that telephone sample comes in, because I wanted to hear the telephone sample. And that's happening on more tracks that you probably will run into together as we walk through them. And then the bells, what I did is just lower them a lot because they were quite prominent, and I think it's a background sound, it adds some rhythm, and it's cool, but it shouldn't be too prominent. And here you can see I cut it a little bit. There are actually some drops into, like this one for example. Let me just play you the whole track, everything goes quiet and then something kicks in.
And I can get you out of my head and go.
Yeah, I like that. That's very nice. They do that again for, I think, the second chorus or something, or maybe for the bridge. But then when they hit this section, that wasn't happening. So I just cut a bunch of instruments, this and this guitar, to make that happen. Sorry for the people who played those instruments, but little sections of them are now gone for the effect of the song.
The number you have dialed.
Silencio.
So a little bit more of that. Boom, here we go. It's a new section. We're going into the outro. Goodbye. We have the piano now. So on the keys, what I do, it's just a British channel. I think it's a default in my template. It is set to bright keys, just to bring out the brightness. It's actually lifting some of the lows and a lot of the highs, and then it's cutting the high mids. This is getting in the way of a lot of stuff with keys, especially of guitars, which are important in this track in my opinion. So we don't need it too over prominent there. Also, on the piano itself, that was the keys group, and then on the piano itself we have an EQ. So I just, I'll let you hear what I did. Removed lows, increased highs by a lot actually. Let me fix this. By a lot, because I really just wanted those frequencies on the piano. I wanted it to play its part and not overtake the guitars. And I also put it to mono, which it was recorded in a beautiful stereo field, and a beautiful white piano can be really cool, but I didn't need it in this track because it also takes up a lot of space. So I just bent it to the left 30 and then made it mono, so it's just playing its part on one side. I'll let you hear it without the Nova and in stereo, and then I'll just turn these on. That's that. Synth did the same, made it mono because it was quite wide, and there is a Nova on there. I just took out the lows and then boosted these, like still kind of low mids. But with synths, often there's a lot going on in the lows which you can't even hear. It's just filling up the frequency space, and I want to leave that room for the bass basically. So, without and with comparison. Always feels a bit painful to squash these instruments by making them mono so much, but just didn't need all that width because there's so much going on with the guitars also. Speaking of which, on the guitar group, I added a British channel, biting L guitar. I love this preset, taking out some of the low mids, pushing the high mids, and that's basically it. There's some compression going on here, but it doesn't even register. Then on the group also there is a sidechain compressor here to the lead vocal, because whenever the guy is singing, I don't want the guitar, or the girl is singing, sorry, I don't want the guitars to overtake her. That was happening, so I just put this sidechain on the entire thing. And then there's a delay, which is I think a nice little effect here. Then on the individual ones, I treated them a little bit, some of them, so there were some harsh frequencies or some overly strong frequencies for some of these guitars, so I took them out, but I didn't do a lot of that. Here also I cut some of the highs because this is a really annoying guitar if you don't do that. Let me that can be very annoying when it's too strong. A lot of them, I really tried to figure out which are the main guitars. I left those in quite strongly, quite prominent. Like this one is clearly a main one. It's -3 dB. And then the backing guitars, kind of adding those little effects, I really lowered them a lot because these effects are cool, but they don't have to overtake the whole song. It's just to add a little bit of vibe to the song. Basically a continuation of that throughout all the tracks. Here is another, this is another sidechain to the little telephone thing. but funnily enough, later I just took out the whole part, so no, it's still playing when the telephone plays. So I need to sidechain it and just push this down to make sure that you can hear the telephone little sample. That's the guitars. Then let's go to the vocal. So lead vocal. This is where I put in quite a lot of work because she has a lot of words where she just sings very quietly, and I'll show you in the automation, but it should be set to the mixer and then track volume. Yeah, there we go. There are just a lot of words which you can see it. She sings it very softly. I'll let you hear this section in solo.
I get your hot back, but I know if I try, it's
Trying. That was super soft, so I upped this like 3 dB just so you can hear it a little bit more. And especially in context, it's being squashed by all the other instruments. I'll play the entire, arrangement with it.
I get your hot back, but I know if I try, it's just.
Especially the last example, the last word without the extra 3 dB, we just didn't hear it anymore. So there's that. That took me quite some time, but here's a neat little trick. If you just select this section and then you go here, you can just paste it. You can copy paste these over, and all these words were often very similar in width. In the end, she starts to sing very quietly on some words, which are or sections even here.
How did we get to this?
So I'm just increasing the volume even up to 6 dB. It's quite a lot. But yeah, there's that. And then I added some saturation on her voice. Is this actually doing anything?
How did we get to this?
It is definitely doing something. So let me turn it off and then play it and turn it on while I'm playing it.
How did we get to this? Ooh.
Yeah, just adding a little bit of prominence. You notice these things, especially in the context of the entire mix. So there's that. Then there's a whole bunch of supporting vocals, which I didn't do anything to. Just lowered volume, bent 2 of them a little bit, which we're doing like, just probably like a new thing. Yeah, I like to use those to just widen the stereo field for the people listening. And then on the Vox group, very basic, TDR Nova, boom, rolling off all the lows because I didn't need those and I wanted to give space to the bass. And then, it's female vocals, so there weren't too many lows anyway. And then I have this plugin, which is basically a bunch of compressors. I turned off the reverb, I turned off the echo. There's a de-esser in here, which I think is just a compressor on the 2K. And then there's these 3 compressors. So you can use any type of compressors to just make sure that she has quite a dynamic voice and also quite a dynamic, of course, style of singing. So that needed to be squashed and brought up through compression to just make sure that she's audible throughout the entire song, even after I, gain stage the whole thing kind of manually. That is that. So then we have these synths. Let me go there. First of all, we have the bass. Is anything happening there? Let me solo this and find a section. No, I'm actually not sending any bass, I think, to that. So I often just decline to do it. I could have removed it, but just didn't need, often you don't really need reverb on the bass. Drums, what am I doing there? Actually sending a whole bunch of that to the drums room, which is my favorite, the Farmstone, and it's set to bright and tight, just to add a lot more shimmer and presence. This is the reverb on solo. Like that, so I can play it without and with. Yeah, so just these things for me, they really tie the whole song together, and they, of course, it becomes less dry and it sounds a bit more professional and like you're actually there. So then we have the keys. This is the piano and the synth. So let me just solo that, see what's going on. Let me find a section where they're actually both playing. Yeah. Okay, it's just a plate. I think it's a gold plate. There we go. That's it. So not a lot. It just makes it a little bit roomy. On the guitar, what am I doing here? No. What am I doing here? I'm sending the guitars there -10, all of them at the same, so quite a lot. Adding a lot of room to these guitars. And what's happening on the reverb here? We have a dual spring. Love to use this. Just guitar bus spring, didn't change any of the settings. This is the solo. Let me find a section with a lot of guitars. Okay, so I'll solo the guitar group and then turn off the reverb, and I'll turn it on while I'm playing it. So, adding quite some warmth and richness and making the guitars more prominent. On the vocals, I have two different reverbs. So the first one is a Valhalla set to smooth room. Because I wanted the lead singer to be in a smooth room. So let me solo this. There you go, super nice and sweet. And then for the backing vocals, I created this separate one, which is a CSR plate. I wanted them, it's a wide vocal, nice for backing vocals because I like them to be wide. I'll solo this. Why not? It makes, just using different reverbs on different vocals, it makes the contrast a bit, more clear, and the backing vocals may be more audible, and it doesn't make one big mush of all the same type of reverb. So there's that. What I didn't show you was the guitar group. I just noticed it. No, actually the keys group. No, I did show you all. Good. There is also some delay going on here, which is unusual for me. I hardly ever use that. So I'll solo this. Yeah, it's some vocal delay. So I'm sending some vocals there to create some more width, make it sound like it's being doubled. Just add some thickness to it all. Then on the main mix bus, what am I doing? Well, here again is my virtual console thing. It's on all the channels, all the groups, and I'll let you hear the difference here because I think it's really nice. Then we turn all of these off on the mix bus so you can hear the unmixed kind of, mix bus version. Turn this off, and now they're off on all the channels, all the groups, and then I'll turn them on. You'll see this turn yellow, of course, and then you'll hear the slight difference. So let me just play the whole track here, and not just this delay. Come on. Adding some warmth, especially in the lows. I like it. And then I'll walk you through these, and then I'll turn them on. So I just cut some of the 2K and everything around it because these vocals were becoming really prominent. Turn on the tape machine to warm it up a little bit. This is a these are the settings, basically very straightforward. Turned a, what's this called, they call it a VC670. I think it's a pull tech. So they actually, it's not a pull tech. This is I wrote this down. It's a Fairchild. Yeah, there we go. So it's an emulated Fairchild. This is the game changer for this mix, I think. And then here's the independence limiter because I wanted to limit the the loudness to just leave room, to leave headroom and not clip. And I like this one. It's an Ableton one, and it adds some of the shimmer in the high, which I really like, and I think this track could use it. So let me just play the track, and then I'll start turning on all of these elements one by one. I just need more of your taste, baby. One more kiss. I can get you out of my head. Then go on like this. Me mata tu silencio. And there you go. That's my final result. I'll be back with another mix.